communications includes, or the reporting mechanisms involved. The DCS additionally advised that parolees convicted of sexual offenses are immediately identified as high risk. What the CGE noted that at no stage during the parole board hearings is a psychological or psychiatric evaluation made. If an offender presents as a model inmate during the incarceration as well as the completion of a designated rehabilitation program, his psychological state is not assessed, which could further lead to the offender being released. A typical example of this is the Gerald Ackerman case, which Gerald Ackerman has recently been convicted and was diagnosed with pedophilic disorder, which basically means he is sexually attracted to children. The psychologist testified that there are no chances of rehabilitation for this type of condition. However, Mr. Ackerman will qualify for parole after serving his sentence. At that point, there will be no psychological evaluation or assessment. The DCS stated that they have the following programs to offenders that are convicted of sexual offenses. The first program includes social functioning, where the focus is on the perpetrators redeveloping values that positively build their character and helping them to refrain from sexual offending behavior. They have a program which focuses on person in environment, where the focus is on the reduction of recidivism by creating awareness about the socialization, cultural practice, social environment, history of abuse, befriending and appearance of victims towards sexual offending behavior. One of their programs is also a drug abuse rehabilitation program, which assists in the reduction of recidivism by creating an awareness about the impact of drugs. Their other program is on sex and sexuality, which assists with the reduction of recidivism by creating awareness about the impact of pornography, negative perception of consent, deviant sexual arousal, criminal record and cultural and sexual practices towards offending behavior. And they also have a victim empathy program, a relapse prevention and aftercare program. I will now begin with the part B of the presentation, which, as explained, contains a brief summary of the inspection report. The metrics displayed here was provided by the Department of Correctional Services. This matrix shows that as of October 25, as of the 25th of October 2023, there were a total of 149,337 inmates. 4,089 of those inmates were female and 145,248 were males. As shown in this matrix, remand detainees made up a total of 53,376. Sentenced offenders comprise a total of 91,872. One of the leading causes of overcrowding that was cited by the different facilities was the number of remand detainees. The contributory factors to the high number of remand detainees were attributed to inmates that were granted bail but could not pay bail, inmates that were refused bail, and also the high number of foreign nationals that were detained at the specific correctional centers. It was noted that during our inspections, Mangaung, being a privately run prison, was contractually bound to a specific number of inmates. However, Rustenburg Correctional Center was overcrowded by 124%. However, one of the reasons cited for this was that they were currently accommodating prisoners from Kutama, Sentumile, which had burnt down. Most of the facilities the CGE visited were overcrowded, including Worcester, Westville. However, Warm Vogerveld in Ceres was not overcrowded because it only accommodated sentenced inmates, which then shows that indeed the remand detainees contribute to the overcrowding. With regards to infrastructure, it was noted that There was an alarming rate of infrastructure failures, which could compromise the health and safety of inmates and DCS officials alike. It was recommended that DCS should embark on a prioritization repair campaign, and it should be accompanied by a precise monitoring and implementation plan. Upon our inspections, one of the things we had noted in Worcester, for instance, is that there was a huge drainage problem. There was water leaking, and the water had a certain odor. It had an awful smell. It literally smelled like feces in the kitchen. And inmates were exposed to such conditions that the water was leaking and they could be injured at any moment. Also, they were preparing food in that type of situation, which could lead to the food being contaminated, or which could lead to the spread of infectious disease. When the officials were asked about this leakage and this drainage, they were advised that it was reported to the Department of Public Works. However, they work on a priority system. With regards to skills development programs, upon our inspections, we noted a number of skills development programs. In Worcester, we noted that inmates made jewelry from recycled material. They had a salon. There was a certain facilities that had an artwork program. We also noted that female inmates were also sewing uniform for remand detainees and sentenced inmates. However, we noted that inmates were exposed to scissors freely. The scissors were not tied down on their table, and this was alarming, as these scissors could be used as weapons should a fight break out. Also, in one of the centers, we noted that in the tuck shop, they had lighters which they were selling to inmates, which is a potential risk, especially noting that Kutama Sentumile had burnt down because of an alleged prisoner who set the prison alight. However, what we had noted is that the skills development program are not geared towards the readiness of the country in terms of the fourth industrial revolution. I've already explained a few safety protocol concerns, including the knives, which are exposed and are not kept at safes. Some knives are kept at a filing cabinet. Also, inmates have free access to scissors, which might contribute should a violent incident break out. The issue of lighters as well. Also, in one of our inspections, we had noted a JICS official taking down a complaint of an inmate who was alleging that she was denied access to medication by one of the nurses. The medication was apparently for high blood, which was a bit concerning for the CGE, as this displayed some type of abuse of power on the DCS official. However, we were pleased that there were JICS officials attending to the complaint. In conclusion, the oversight visits indicated a number of challenges that the DCS had faced. There was a lack of resources, which the CGE noted as a concern, which impacts the DCS and its ability to fulfill its mandate. However, the CGE recommends that a priority assessment must be done to ensure that the DCS fulfills in its mandate. In addition, the DCS must ensure that officials are able to access employee wellness services promptly, and DCS officials are tasked with, as DCS officials are tasked with an enormous duty to safeguard inmates. As stated, the inspection report is available. We will finish the DCS with the inspection report. There are some issues maybe we might not have highlighted, which the DCS will have an opportunity to respond to in the inspection report. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sonjitla, for the presentation. The next item will be the administration of the oath. We will request the National Commissioner to, the National Commissioner will be taking the administration of the oath, and we request that if you could just take a stand for us while we do the administration of the oath. I will then hand over to Mr. Swanepoel on behalf of CGE to do the administration. We just need 2 minutes. Commissioner, could you push the mic?
Thank you, Khomi. Good morning, sir. Could you please state your name for the record? My name is Mahoti Samuel Tubakhala.
Do you wish to take an oath or an affirmation?
An oath.
Okay. All right. Please repeat after me. I, Mahoti Tubakhala,
I, Mahoti Samuel Tubakhala,
do hereby make oath and state.
do hereby make oath instant.
I know and understand
I know and understand
the contents of the declaration
the contents of the declaration
I'm about to make.
I'm about to make.
I have no objections
I have no objections
to taking the prescribed oath,
to taking the prescribed oath,
and I consider the prescribed oath
and I consider the prescribed oath
to be binding on my
to
conscience.
be binding on my conscience.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear
I swear
that the contents
that the contents
of this declaration
of this declaration
are true,
are true,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I confirm that the opponent has been duly sworn in.
The next issue will then be the presentation that will be made by the department. I just wanted to find out if you'll be projecting your presentation. If you've prepared one so that we can just pass to the court to project.
Yes, we can project, but I've sent one to the city.
You've sent one to Mr. Khone.
Which one did you send?
The person who's holding the presentation must follow the word document. There's a word document that I'll be using.
Okay.
So the word document is a mirror of the presentation.
Then you can just download the slides
You can put the slides on. You can put the slides on. Well, there's some information that will not be in the presentation, but it's not a lot. Just some points of emphasis.
Okay, when you start your presentation, just indicate that
Yes.
and when you projected,
Yes.
the information is
Yeah.
but I can also project if you're comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay. No problem. Just give me a minute just to,
Yeah, but already.
okay, you read. Come now, you. Can you bring us back in? Yes.
Because of the television set. Well, what I see.
Okay, continue. Continue. Please all settle down so that we can continue with the proceedings. Thank you. I'll now hand over to the National Commissioner to make the presentation on behalf of the department.
Okay. Thank you, Program Director, and greetings once more to the commissioners and colleagues. Let me start by apologizing for the miscommunication on our side that made me arrive here before 10 o'clock, after 9 o'clock, when I thought I was early. I'm very sorry for that. We have prepared a PowerPoint presentation and also note that speaks to the presentation. We have also noted that out of the presentation that was made by the Commission, there are issues that are not necessarily covered in our presentation. Issues that one would like to shed some light as we do our presentation, and probably as we get into discussions, we might volunteer more documents. Program Director, the Commissioner, Chairperson for the Commission, Advocate Ntabiseng Sipanya Mokhale, and other members of the Commission, the Commissioners, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. As a National Commissioner, it is my duty to ensure that inmates, regardless of their circumstances, are treated with dignity and respect. Furthermore, it is my favorite view that the treatment and care of incarcerated people, especially women, is a reflection of our society's values and principles. I would like to just provide a summary of the population that we currently have. I am aware that the presentation was talking to the numbers looking back at October 2023, but I thought that for the purpose of this hearing and specifically addressing the deep-seated problem of overcrowding that we have in our facilities, I should just provide statistics as at last week. On a weekly basis, we hold what we call the National Operations Committee meeting, where we present statistics as management, discuss incidents, discuss the conditions of both our employees and also inmates. We also touch on the conditions that are faced by our parolees and probationers. So, as at last week, we had just over 155,000 inmates. Our bed capacity remains 104,558. So our occupancy level was at 148%. Out of that total number, our remand detainees were at 58,925. Our sentenced offenders were at 95,933. I thought also it is important just to state that the state patients were at 186. When we move on to the side of the parolees and probationers caseload, the total is 51,765, and we have parolees at four at
And that category, what's
parolees and probationers, those that are serving the rest of the sentence outside our correctional facilities in community corrections.
your first figure that you mentioned, Commissioner, was?
The total is 51,765. Out of that figure, 45,362 are parolees. And then probationers is 5,601. In the presentation by the Commission, there was a mention of the department not being able to provide a ratio of our security personnel to inmates. It is because of the fluctuating numbers that we are not able to do that at a given point in time. But on average, as it stands, the ratio is 1 to 5. Our system, in terms of security movements, operations, and care, our system captured in the standard operating procedures indicates that we're supposed to have 2 security officials to 1 inmate. That is the standard. We call it a buddy-buddy system. Of course, it's because of the security risks that are associated with any movement or any interaction with an offender. So as it stands, on average, the ratio is 1 to 5. Chairperson, we must acknowledge that female inmates have specific needs that differ from their male counterparts. It can never be disputed that many of them have experienced trauma, abuse, and often face mental health issues. It is thus our responsibility to create an environment that fosters healing and growth rather than perpetuating cycles of pain and despair. Looking at the number of female inmates, we are standing at 4,089. 1,768 are remand detainees, and 2,321 represents the number of sentenced offenders that are female. This small number, as it presents itself, has both disadvantages and advantages for female inmates. One advantage is that they do not face the same degree of overcrowding as male offenders. But sadly, one major disadvantage is that because they are fewer, we then have fewer female correctional centers. They are often forced to be distant from their families than male offenders, as there are only 9 designated female centers and 16 female units in the country, making a total of 25. Of great concern, though, to the country, the female population has been increasing over the years, and that is not a positive sign for a developing country like ours. The changes are also registered in the type of crimes they commit. They are becoming serious or multiple, thus extending their term behind bars. This point, we also generalize it to the current population that we have, the profile of the offenders that we have in correctional facilities. We are having more offenders serving long sentences because of the types of crime that they are sentenced for. That reflects, of course, on the crimes that are committed in the country and the analysis of the state of security and safety in South Africa. I must indicate also, Chairperson, that in terms of the value chain of the criminal justice system, of course, we are the last department, or we are at the receiving end. So all the efforts of the criminal justice system end up with us. We have just been presented with the State of the Nation address. We've just been presented with the budget speech yesterday. There were announcements of providing capacity to SAPS, and there were amounts even attributed to the Department of Justice. There was no amount attributed to the Department of Correctional Services. Sadly, we have to sit with budget cuts. We, in terms of the law, in as much as we even had to go to court to present ourselves as to why we could not admit an offender with disabilities, we are not allowed to turn back any inmate that is referred to us by the courts. We are not allowed, no matter how overcrowded we can be. That's why even today we sit with the number of 186 state patients that are not supposed to be in our facilities because the Department of Health does not have beds to take care of these state patients. And the courts refer them to us as the Department of Correctional Services. On the issue of female offenders with children, the Department of Correctional Services provides mother and baby units, and those are within our correctional facilities. So we offer separate sleeping accommodation for mothers and their babies, and linked to the mother and baby units are 17 early childhood development facilities and 57 infants were there around the 31st of October 2023. We have training facilities offered to female offenders, and with obviously the budget constraints that I've referred to, we try by all means to ensure that they have requisite skills that they will utilize to take advantage of economic opportunities upon leaving our facilities. Although sometimes in public we are criticized for exposing the female offenders to the beauty industry within our facilities. But for us it is important because it has been proven over time that once you have a skill that has to do with the beauty industry, immediately you are self-employed and you can even create employment for others. Chairperson, I'm going to then talk to the recommendations. I will not necessarily read the recommendations as they are, but I will just reflect on the response from the department. The first recommendation talks to the work that we should do within the justice, crime prevention and security cluster. I want to confirm that as the department we participate fully in all cluster meetings. We have presented on the issue of overcrowding to the level of cabinet, and cabinet has taken a resolution that the overcrowding problem is not a problem of the Department of Correctional Services only. It's a problem that has to be addressed by the criminal justice system value chain. We have developed an overcrowding reduction strategy that was approved in 2021. We are implementing the strategy, as I've indicated, with other departments in the JCPS cluster to be pointed in mentioning South African Police Service and also Department of Health and Department of Home Affairs with regards to foreign nationals. So through the work that we have done, the JCPS cluster has established a subcommittee that monitors overcrowding on a monthly basis. I must indicate though, Chairperson, that As the numbers continue to grow, as we have observed, the figures that I gave at the beginning of my presentation are figures that come after we have implemented the special remission process. When we implemented the special remission process, we're at around 149. It took us to around 146. But now we are at 155 going up. With the current state of the facilities, the current state of infrastructure in the correctional system, we have to struggle to ensure that we keep the number of beds that we have, the 104,000 that I've alluded to, with the failures that the presentation from the Commission has pointed out of leaking taps, leaking roofs. We run a rapid maintenance program, and I'm sure with the observation, the commissioners and the researchers from the Commission or colleagues have noticed that more damage to our facilities actually happens in the remand detention site. And that's where we do a lot of maintenance work. Now, in the context of the budget cuts over the past 5 years, when Treasury cuts the budget of correctional services, they start with infrastructure. And it's because of the general approach that is caused by the fact that our main implementing agent, the Department of Public Works, is not able to implement projects on time. So government looks at allocations that are not moving, and infrastructure is one of those. As we take cuts, all of us as departments, we also take a cut as the Department of Correctional Services. We are currently implementing a diversified program of allocations to implementing agents. We are utilizing the Development Bank of Southern Africa. We are utilizing the Independent Development Trust, IDT. We are also then utilizing Department of Public Works.
Can you just explain to do what?
To implement the maintenance program. They have the capability to do that, and it's part of their mandate to also do that. But over the past 3 years, we have built capacity within the Department of Correctional Services. We now have an engineering and professional services unit that is able to do basic designs and monitor our own projects on site. We have projects that we are implementing. We are calling them in-house projects. We are able to utilize offenders to build basic units that we need in our correctional facilities. We are currently rolling out pharmacies, and those pharmacies we are building them ourselves through offender labor and the artisans that we have as part of our employ. We are able to build, as I indicated, basic facilities like classrooms, where we are able then to offer educational programs that we are required to offer as the department. We have just completed a pharmacy in Pietermaritzburg that is going to be opened in a few days to come. We are doing this because we are avoiding having to transport medication over long distances between management areas. That helps us also with ensuring that we cut wastage, but at the same time, it saves us having our resources spread all over, given the fact that we are having a shortage with regards to human resources. This program is part of a program which, in the presentation, the commission did not cover. It's a program we call Self-Sufficiency and Sustainability. We developed that strategy. It was adopted in 2021. We are now in we are going to be entering the third year of implementing the strategy. It is basically meant to utilize the endowments and facilities we have within correctional services. We have workshops, we have farms. We are utilizing those to, through offender labor, to reduce the costs of housing offenders, but at the same time, we are utilizing those to generate revenue. Treasury was allowing us only to retain a third of that revenue up to 2021, but after they realized the potential of the program, we are now allowed to retain 100% of the revenue, and we invest the revenue back into developing more of these facilities. So offenders are producing their own rations, and at the same time, they are also in the textile workshops producing their own uniform. We aim to expand on that, because through that we will then be able to mitigate the risk of the budget cuts. The second recommendation was on us developing a new strategy for accommodating inmates with mental health problems. I've already indicated that in the main, we accommodate the mental patients in our clinic or health facilities. There are those that, in as much as that they are in that state, will request to be part of the general population. We ensure that they are housed in cells where the offenders and them would have a good relationship, and we monitor them on a daily basis. It is also part of ensuring that we don't isolate them to the extent that we will exacerbate their conditions. Our clinic and health facilities have members that are deployed on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. We have health professionals that we've employed in the department on a full-time basis. In centers that are having a huge population, we also have permanent doctors that are employed in the department. In centers where the population is low and is better managed by the health professionals, we have doctors that are doing stationary work and are always on call on a 24-hour basis. On the recommendation number 3 on reviewing and strengthening the offender screening process, we have improved on the side of healthcare services with regards to the procedures that we follow on screening. We are able, as part of the 7 days observation period upon admission of an offender, to record and have a file that is complete with regards to any medical condition an offender would have. And that is linked to our pharmacies, and is also linked to the Department of Health district facilities outside the correctional facility. Our professional nurses are the ones that are doing the screening. Where we experience offenders with injuries upon admission, we liaise with the police, and we ensure that SAPS take responsibility of that, because they are brought by SAPS into our facilities. We are listing there the assessment content with regards to the screening that we are doing. On recommendation number 4, the provision of necessary skills and training to staff, we are continuously improving on our education and training and also skilling programs as the department. We have a healthcare services chief directorate. I must indicate that because also of the delays in recruitment processes that the department has been experiencing over the years, we have been having chief directorates and directorates that were not having senior managers employed. We've, as a department over the years, have been managing with colleagues that are in acting capacity. We have corrected that. That's why, as it stands, our Chief Directorate for Healthcare Services has a Chief Director, and we hope that things will improve as we move on. We've been making progress in terms of appointments at the senior management level, including in our correctional facilities or our management areas. I'm sure the commissioners and the researchers and colleagues who went to our facilities might have realized that in most management areas we had acting area commissioners. Now we have dealt with that backlog. The only facilities where we have acting area commissioners is because we have recently experienced a number of our officials going on pension. So we are still on that drive of ensuring that at least we stabilize the senior management level of the department. And of course, we are doing that observing the equity requirements that go with that exercise. So in terms of training, we are conducting mental health awareness and training sessions. Just to ensure that our officials are well equipped as part of the training programs that we have in the department. Recommendation number 5 talks to developing effective operational manuals for dealing with the provision of timely procurement supply of prescribed medication for inmates. I've already indicated that one of the problems we identified in the value chain was the fact that our management areas did not have pharmacies. We have corrected that. And all our pharmacies are accredited. And as we establish the pharmacies, we also employ pharmacists and assistant pharmacists to manage those pharmacies in line with the norms and standards. I want to admit, Chairperson, that the policies that have been mentioned as not being reviewed, yes, the state is as it is at the moment. We have started a process of reviewing those policies. With regards to skills development programs for officials, we offer bursaries as part of the offering, the general offering of government, and we also ensure that as part of performance agreements of our employees, the section that has to do with skills development is populated with relevant programs, and we ensure that we support our employees to attend to those programs. Now, with regards to the issue of the shortage of staff, through an assessment of the process of attrition, we have been able to realize that the approach that the department was utilizing over the years of doing an intake of just above 1,000 or every 2 years is not sustainable. We have been able to reprioritize our budget and we are currently on a recruitment drive of an intake of 6,000. Initially, we were looking at an intake of 3,000, that was last year, but as we continued to analyze our staff numbers, and also as we looked at the budget, we realized that we can be able to recruit 6,000 new members through the learnership program, and that is without any additional allocation from Treasury. And we hope that this will obviously improve our footprint and our reach with regards to offering services to inmates. And our focus with this intake is on the skills that have been identified also as in demand for the development of our economy. I've already indicated that we have workshops, we have farms, and our recruitment also focuses on getting those skills into the department. We're also focusing on getting skills that can enhance our education offering to inmates. With regards to the remand detainees, normally we were not, and in correctional systems, even over the world, remand detainees are not provided any kind of skills development program because of the fact that we do not know how long they will stay in the system. But with the problem of overcrowding, we have established that on average, more than 50% of the remand detainees spend more than 3 years in correctional facilities. Now, within the same budget allocations, we have introduced a program that focuses on personal development for remand detainees. Because what we realized is that if we do not do that, we continue to run a risk of the remand detention centers being a basis for criminal rings and gangs to recruit. So our programs are meant to disrupt that type of activity and ensure that at least remand detainees at a personal level have that opportunity to interact with corrective programs. Chairperson, I have gone through the recommendations. I've indicated that there are issues that were mentioned in the presentation that we have not dealt with. On issues that are pointed, for instance, like the example of the Worcester Correctional Facility kitchen, that is a problem that stands out, that I can indicate to the Commission that when I stand up here, it's a problem that I will ensure that it's resolved the sooner. If the Department of Public Works cannot do it, I've indicated that already. We've built capacity to do the work. The problem with the fact that we are not able to do our own maintenance 100% is because the country uses, the government uses what we call a user charge model. Treasury allocates maintenance funding to Department of Public Works. We do not have access to that. Actually, it's not, for us, what we have access to is what I would call a facility to utilize the maintenance. So we lodge calls with the Department of Public Works. They will come and do maintenance work every quarter. That ring-fenced amount is then released to the Department of Public Works. Ours is currently sitting at more than 600 million. We can only access that if we use that system. We've had engagements with Public Works. We were allowed to only do maintenance up to 100,000 per incident. So through our engagement with them and also showing the Department of Public Works that we have the capacity, we've been allowed now to do maintenance at least to the amount of 1 million. And we are utilizing that then as an advantage for us to be able to deal with the maintenance problems that we face. The presentation from the Commission also alluded to the problems around the issuing of sanitary pads. I appointed a task team that now permanently monitors the issuing of these amenities to female offenders, and they are doing that monitoring on a monthly basis. The incident that has been mentioned, I will also follow it up because it is against policy. I must mention, Chairperson, that our environment is strict with regards to the implementation of standard operating procedures. As a result, we have a growing number of our officials getting dismissed because of not following standard operating procedures. Why? Because our standard operating procedures are a mirror of the Correctional Services Act. The transgressions automatically are dictated to by provisions of the Act in terms of the kinds of sanctions that are meted out by disciplinary processes that we then put in place. Chairperson, I would like to submit this as a response from the Department of Correctional Services, and thank the Commission for giving us an opportunity to appear. We're worried because accounting is not an exercise that is supposed to be taken lightly. As the department, we thrive in ensuring that the shortcomings that are pointed at us through any process, we thrive at ensuring that we go back and correct those and provide evidence that we have corrected those. And we are always open for inspections at any given point in time. That actually helps us to improve on our operations. As I've indicated, we are an operation that is very tight because we have this number of more than 155,000 offenders or inmates, and we have to make it a point that each and every one of them are safe from any kind of harm. So we appreciate any process that is meant to ensure that we do our work properly. Having said that, Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the presentation. I will now hand over to the chairperson of the CGE to facilitate the question and response session.
I will allow the commissioners who are ready to go with their questions. Commissioner Naidu, are you ready? Are you ready, sir?
I just want to ask a question. I don't know if it is a generic question. The commissioners. And thank you for the presentation. I think for us, it actually demonstrates a very layered challenge and a very layered mandate that you must implement and deliver a safe environment for the people of South Africa, and specifically for the women, because women and children, because we are faced in the LGBTQIA+ community, because I'm saying this within the context of the gender-based violence that we are faced with, and the NSP, National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence, that is supposed to help to eradicate gender-based violence. And one of the critical pillars of that is Pillar 3. I think you know it very well. And as you are talking and outlining what you are doing, I'm actually thinking now about the corrections and the correctional facilities, the public ones, but there is also, I'm not sure what they are called, the private one. I'm calling that for convenience because I don't know what they are called. Somebody said they are a management agency. Somebody. I would like to know, within the context of what I've painted, what is the relationship? Because I did not see you mentioning it. What is the relationship between yourself and that which I have called private or management, privately managed correction facilities? What is your relationship? What are the lines of accountability? And how do you ensure that the mandates that you so articulately outlined when you opened about your duty to the inmates and to the country, what is the relationship? What are the lines of accountability? And do they, you spoke about SOPs as very important because they mirror the act. Does that apply to those correctional services? And how do you ensure monitoring and compliance with those? Let me stop there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner Ngoma-Diseko. Committee, are you ready?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Commissioner. As alluded to, I was one of the commissioners that was involved in the inspection in local. And before we go to the bad, I'd like to congratulate you on your new generation center in series. When I walked out of the center, I could not fault the head of management. So please, once again, extend my congratulations to him in this regard. Commissioner, I'm now going to move along to my questions and what concerns me that I found during my inspection in local. One of them being the kitchen at Worcester. I heard that you are going to address it. The other one in Worcester that I'd like you to give attention to is your remand center where the remand detainees are held. It's, for a lack of a better word, it infringes on so many rights to dignity. Inmates are walking around, the room is overcrowded. We need to address it. I understand your issues surrounding overcrowding. And when I compare it to your facility that is managed by G4S and what the inmates have there, and I compared it to the other 5 facilities that I conducted an inspection in local with, we are not dealing with apples and apples. We are dealing with apples and we're dealing with a delicate pomegranate. So there is a masked distinction in the way dignity is dealt with in the facilities. And speaking about that, I'd like if you could please answer me. I don't know what the department pays G4S to manage your facility, but when you speak about budget constraints and budget cost, and let us look at what we are paying that particular management agent as to say on a monthly basis, and how we can better utilize that money for the other centers around the country, if that is something you could note. And in Worcester, I said to you that when we tried to enter the kitchen, accompanying us on that visit was, I'm not sure if she still holds office within the department, but it was Director Mbonani. She was your gender and employment director at that stage. She did not want to enter the premises. That's how bad it was. I'm going to move along and I'm going to look at your study skills areas and your libraries. Your quality check in terms of the books that goes into your libraries. We are dealing with sexual offenders. Romantic novels, Mills and Boons, John Grisham novels are all in your libraries. Can we please have a proper quality check in that regard? we are trying to rehabilitate offenders, and having these books in your library is not going to rehabilitate them, it's going to entice them. The other issue that I picked up on my rounds was, I also want to extend my congratulations to you, to your school center in UKZN. Sorry, not UKZN, in the Durban Correctional Center. And I would like to address the issue of your baby and mother unit. How many units do you have in terms of the baby and mother unit nationally? I understand that there is one, and we inspected the one in KwaZulu-Natal. I understand there's one in Portsmouth. And I'm now going to move on to overcrowding. And I just want you to speak to me about any MOUs you may have in place with our foreigners, in terms of foreign detainees, where after sentencing and after they've served their sentence and they're eligible for parole, can they be transferred to the country that they come from? Chair, I'm going to cap it at that. If I have a second round, I'll ask.
Yes, there will be a second round, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Commissioner Tobakale and your colleagues, my questions, okay, the ratio you did clarify that was the national standard set of 1 to 2, but you're at 1 to 5, so that's not a question anymore. I just wanted us to maybe look at the purpose of correctional services, one being rehabilitation, but rehabilitation within a context of a constitution where at all times the human dignity as prescribed in section 10 has got always to be observed. So now when you talk about important that you are not allowed to return any sentenced prisoners back home, and you're struggling with that, I would like us to start rephrasing it within the context of the survivors and victims of those people as well. So it's not only about you not being allowed, but about the purpose of those people being there in the first place. That we should also at all times give respect and uphold the dignity of the people that they have violated. So that, you know, it's not presented as we don't have a choice, that's why we keep them there. No, they are there to serve a sentence because they have violated somebody, and therefore it would be inappropriate not to live up to the sentence that has been issued out by the court. So it's just a matter of language. I just wanted to correct that. Thanks. I want to know, secondly, what you spoke about special remission. I just want to know how different it is from your normal remission of sentence that we are used to. Why that category in the first place? Yes, the issue of you said something about use of offender labor to do certain things, one of which was actually building a classroom. And I was going to ask if this is allowed, and this has actually been commended by National Treasury, why not go on to build, to extend the awaiting remand detention centers and areas to include maybe even an added space, because a classroom is literally 4 doors and windows. So I'm sure if they can do that, they would be able to do an addition to a center instead of that overcrowding. Why I'm raising this is because sometimes overcrowding is seen as the reason why people have got to be given parole, even people who do not deserve parole, and therefore it undermines the whole purpose of correctional services, because it should not be about we are overcrowded, let them go. It must be about they have been rehabilitated, chances are very slim that they will offend. The people that they had violated in the first place, who brought them here, will most probably get some level of closure. That must never be forgotten. It will never be 100% because the violations in most instances that happen to people in our country are like permanent scars. You know, people die, people get raped, people die of HIV as a result of the rape. So people out there carry very, very deep scars. So there will never be 100% closure, but some level of closure. It actually deepens the wounds when somebody violates you, when you've got a daughter, a son, a husband who has been killed in the process of a crime, and they get sentenced to life, and they know that, no, in 25 years I'll be back. Or they rape and they get given 15 years and they know in 6.5 I will be back. Parole in our country, you guys have got to go back to the drawing board, has become a right to be given rather than a right to be considered. I sound very clever, but I stole this from somebody yesterday. Parole is supposed to be a right to be considered. What are those things, those pointers, those benchmarks that you are supposed to consider before you give a parole? Do the victims and survivors of those offenders know what those things are so that they can be kept abreast of the process? But generally, who else knows about those things? Why people are given parole? Because definitely it is not supposed to be about overcrowding. Overcrowding, the only other response is supposed to be building more correctional centers, which actually brings me to my next sentence. Why is there no, I don't know, it seems like there are no building processes towards new correctional centers, or they happen once in a blue moon, whereas correctional centers are supposed to be built in response to the levels of violence. Obviously, looking at other things, the socio-economic, political, but as well as, like you say, the last pot of call should be incarceration, and therefore, do we have enough space? You know, and our country is actually ripe for that discussion, considering the high quantity of crime and the shocking and horrendous levels of crime. You know, people being burned, all of those things. It's not normal crime. It is okay to talk about new centers. I just want to know what is the discussion there within correctional centers. And then you spoke about pharmacies. How many of the correctional centers have got their own pharmacies? And like you so aptly said, a pharmacy basically, why it's being built, it's four walls and a window to dispense. And inside you put shelves that will be marked. Why is this not roll-outable to all our other centers? You know, how many just roughly, how many centers do we have, Dr. Tabakala?
I'll have to just check.
No, is it around 100, 150?
No, we're building them around our management areas. We have 42 management areas.
Okay.
I think at the moment we're at figure around 50 so.
In terms of correctional centers, we've got 243.
No, I mean the pharmacies.
No, I was talking about correctional
The
centers.
centers is 243, but
Yeah.
they are grouped as under management areas.
You did say that National Treasury is happy with you using own labor. You get allowed to use 1 million rand at least a year to do those repairs, etc. So I'm sure 245 big halls with a window for pharmacy and 245 additional halls in our centers would actually go a long way to ease rather than that parole thing, as I mentioned. Also, just a breakdown, if you don't, you can respond. How many professionals do you have in the centers, but also per in terms of ratio, per the offenders. You know, I'm sure you won't be able to give it today, but it's fine, you can come back to us. Because if you say you've got doctors, but there's one doctor for per province, it's pointless. Yeah. Okay. And then the causes of the delays over the years to employ, you said you are dealing with that, but what were the causes, just so that you are always alive to that you don't go back to that? Yeah, so far I think I'll end here. CEO, so how do we do it? Do they answer now and go?
Yes.
Okay, if you could answer these ones, and then the acting CEO will then allow the team to ask that question. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
That's what we do.
okay, so you only have
Yeah, you
okay, sorry,
But we let them
Let them
Oh,
answer,
and
then
give the
okay.
commissioners a second round.
okay, all right, no problem. Thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Chairperson and Commissioners.
If you can tell us which question you are responding.
Yeah, I'm going to.
So that we know, we monitor you from this point.
There are questions that I will then request the members of the delegation here to assist with answering, but I will start first with those that I'm able to answer. On the causes of, so I'll start from the last question going back to the first one.
Okay.
On the causes of delays to employ, I basically attribute this to the department not monitoring the recruitment processes. And this is a general problem that is actually experienced in government, where you have, as I've indicated, an employee going on pension. We know that this employee is going on pension in the coming 2 months, and we wait for that employee to go on pension and advertise after 6 months. So what we're currently doing now, as I indicated, is to fill the positions. We have those that are going on pension in April. The next advert that is going to go out has those positions, because we are monitoring the recruitment processes tightly. But I must indicate, Chairperson, that there's a process that Treasury has been implementing called the Human Resource Budget Planning Tool application. Basically, departments are required to reduce their staff numbers because of the problem of a bloated public service. So we're also part of that. So the problem was that the department could not balance that process with the process of recruitment because it has to do with numbers. If you employ beyond the requirements of the HRBP tool, you overspend. It's regular in Batwa. And if you try to keep within the process of implementing the HRBP tool, you stagnate in terms of recruitment processes. So with a little bit of a push there and there, we are trying to ensure that we don't overspend, but we continue to recruit. And I indicated that our strength is the fact that we are able to identify positions that are going to be vacant because of natural attrition. And we then utilize that space to continue to bring in new recruits. The issue of how many professionals do we have and also per offender, I will request that we provide that information in the presentation. There is a mention, but it's not going to be that useful because it's an overall number. It's not specific to the question that the chairperson asked. Also, how many pharmacies we can be able to provide the figure before we even leave the session. It's just to check on the system. We are rolling them out on a monthly basis according to the capability and the amount we have. And we are targeting regions where there is less. For instance, in KZN we did not have a pharmacy. So now we built 3. as part of one program. We are going to be opening them in a few days. Actually, I'm going to be inspecting the Pietermaritzburg one over the next week. The Chairperson, in my view, the country has to discuss building of new correctional facilities. It's not a matter that can be avoided anymore. It's not a discussion that people would want to enter into easily, because it's part of also recognizing the fact that we have a serious problem of crime. But let me give an example. SAPS is rolling out Operation Chanela. In the first week, they arrested 200,000 suspects. We are sitting with an overcrowding of an occupation rate of 148%. Out of the 200,000, more than 100,000 of those end up with us. During the uprisings, the July 2021 uprisings, we faced a problem of not knowing where to admit those that were, and yes, Chairperson, we admit them. But I'm just showing that we really have to confront that reality of discussing building of correctional facilities to at least to match the challenge of crime that we have in the country. There are projects, as the Chairperson correctly pointed, that are planned. For instance, we were supposed to build a correctional facility in the Northwest. That correctional facility has been in the planning process for more than 13 years. And again, we have to have this back and forth with Department of Public Works. But also the problem is the bulk services supply of our municipalities, because for us to be able to build facilities which are huge, you need the bulk services supply from municipality, water, electricity, sanitation. So we are now forced to look into new technologies where we can build these facilities without them relying on municipalities, and we're basically looking at new methods of generating power. So we have a new facility we are building in the Eastern Cape. It will be completed in the coming 3 years, but still the occupancy, the bed capacity is less than 3,000. It will not necessarily make that huge of a dent on overcrowding. We are reviewing the parole system. We are reviewing it from two angles. The first angle is the effectiveness of the parole system as a deterrent to crime. The second angle is the efficacy of the parole consideration processes. Are we getting the correct people considered for parole? And when that decision is made, is that decision made to ensure that the considered person does not go back to the life of crime? We have a community corrections branch in the department. That branch had only a DDG called Chief Deputy Commissioner, and then one Chief Director. And the work was primarily only focusing on monitoring of parolees. There was no focus on community work. There was no focus on how we, as the department, through our processes and decisions, are impacting on the life of victims or on victims. So we revised the macro organizational structure. In any case, the department operated without an approved organizational structure for more than 5 years. the processes were always continuing, but it never got to a point where it's approved. Now we've been able to get the structure approved. We have established a new chief directorate focusing on community liaison and community engagements. Through this, we are going to be able to improve on our interactions with SAPS, especially where a parolee is now released into the hands of the custodian. We're already doing work with traditional leaders. We've signed an MOU with traditional leaders. We have community engagements that we are implementing. Tomorrow I'll be in Komati Port, where we'll be addressing the youth with parolees about the work of community corrections and the parole system. But also we're looking at joint projects between the community and the parolees, and we include the victims of crime in that locality. We will be launching a skills training program with a CETA. It's a program to train young people to install DSTVs and to fix electronics. The intake there is parolees, victims of crime, and community members that are in need, but we're focusing on the youth. So those are the type of programs that we want to then maximize under this chief directorate. We also have victim offender dialogue programs that we roll out. And in the sitting of parole boards, the victims are allowed to make representation. On that, we also lacking because we are, in most instances, pushed to move into a sitting by offenders, even if we cannot find victims. They go to courts and they present, and we are given that pressure to move. But in most instances, we ensure that we don't move without representation from the victim, and that's why in the sittings of parole boards, we actually have the investigation officer from South African Police Service as part of the sittings. We are reviewing the contracts of the parole boards so that we can have them appointed over a sustainable period, at least 5 years, because at the moment they are appointed over a period of 3 years. So before you know it, you have to advertise and reappoint, and that process actually disturbs the system. The parole boards are not allowed to release any offender on parole if that offender has not satisfied the requirements. In cases where that happens, we fire those members of the parole boards. So we take each case as a very, very, very serious case. And the experience that we have in parole boards, it's an experience of members that have been there over the years. We have community members that are also sitting in parole boards. They represent the youth, they represent women, they represent all the sectors. We are going to be exploring the utilizing offender labor to build correctional facilities, but we want to start with those facilities that we still have, unfortunately, facilities that are asbestos, although it's a small number, around 8. We're now going to be taking advantage of the fact that the foundations are firm. It's just to put up the top structure, but obviously a correctional facility has got security features that are not the same as any infrastructure, and we have to look into that. But yes, they have a contribution to make. We've started a project of manufacturing bricks, utilizing also offender labor. So we're looking at expanding the value chain of utilizing offender labor on infrastructure. The special remission question, I will ask Acting DC to answer. And then I have noted, Chair, the comment on admission of inmates into correctional facilities, and the fact that we are doing that because they have committed crimes. On overcrowding, we have an MOU with the Department of Home Affairs on deportation of foreign nationals. The part that we're still working on is having country agreements, especially from the SADC perspective, on foreign nationals after sentencing being deported to serve their sentences in the countries of origin. The problem is that most countries want the MOU or the agreement to be based on voluntarism. That the offender should volunteer to. And if that is not happening, the offender should consent to. And most offenders do not want, because of a comparison of conditions and the fact that in South Africa we observe the universal rules, the Nelson Mandela rules, yes, and our human rights culture provides them with a better opportunity. The mother-baby units, I think I did refer to the number in the presentation right at the beginning. I'll just get to it quickly. We have 9 designated female centers. So these are fully fledged centers, and then we have 16 female units in the country. So the total is 25 of facilities where we house the female and mother and children. We appreciate the comment about the Durban Management Area School. It has done well also, as reflected by the matric results. We have also committed ourselves to improving the conditions there for the better. Libraries, we take note of the point raised by Commissioner Naidu on the type of books we have in our libraries. We will do work to ensure that we correct that. The issue of the private-public partnership correctional facilities, they are not overcrowded because we pay per bed, so they are not allowed to have a bed that is empty, and they cannot have more than the number of. They cannot have offenders that are more than the number of beds. Yes, we are paying a lot of amount. Hence, these contracts are supposed to come to an end. The contract that was signed by government then presents a lot of disadvantages to government and a lot of advantages to the contractors, especially given that contractors are not even from South Africa. Mangaung is under, I think it's a British company, and then Kotamasin Tumile is under an American company. So that contract is a contract that if we are to review triple Ps, it should be utilized as a contract that demonstrates how not to do it. Hence, we are not going to be extending these contracts. And they have to manage the facilities in accordance with our standard operating procedures. We have a supervisory committee that sits and looks at the violations or non-compliance with the contract. We have controllers that are on the ground every day. They are supported by deputy controllers. Still, in terms of the contract itself, the Section 112 of the Correctional Services Act allows us as the department to step in where we find that things have gone horribly wrong, like the Thabo Bester incident in Mangaung. We have been there now for close to a year. End of March, we'll be finishing a year there. We are in court with the contractor, and of course, we are contesting the space. They don't want us there, but we better do it ourselves. We are ready to take over those facilities if the contractors up and go tomorrow morning. We will take over. That's the type of systems that we have and the human resource experience that we have in correctional services. Whether we should continue to explore triple Ps, I've indicated that the current contract is a good example of how not to do it that way. We have demonstrated our capacity. When Kutamas in Tumile got banned, we were able to absorb, even though we were overcrowded, we were able to absorb the numbers and allowed them to repair the facility. We are not paying them at the moment, the contractor for Kutamas in Tumile, because the beds are empty. So we're able to utilize that money to improve on conditions of the existing public correctional facilities. Yeah, okay. I've spoken to the issue of the kitchen, the Worcester kitchen. Acting DC. Through you, Chairperson, I request that the acting DC fill in the missing words, but there's a specific question on special remission. How different is it from a normal remission? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, National Commission. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to respond on a special remission, and the term that we usually refer to is early release. So this is special remissions are basically granted by the President in terms of the powers vested in him. To be specific, Section 84, 2J of the Constitution. So special remission is usually granted to certain categories of offenders. For example, there will be exclusions and those that are going to benefit. So generally, your low-risk offenders, because this process usually takes care of the safety of the community, particularly the victims of crimes as well. So at different times, we would have different types of special remissions. For example, when we had the pandemic COVID-19, we had what we call COVID-19 special parole dispensation. So there, the President granted that all those who were to be released in the next 5 years or 60 months were to be considered. But of course, this was a process that was structured and also systematically managed, in that they had to look at the correctional sentence plan, whether the offender has finished all the programs that were recommended, and also evaluate the risk that the offender would pose to the community. So basically, we establish different teams, task teams that also ensure that the process is actually managed to the point that even those that are arrested during that period are also recorded for documentation. So hence I was saying that during COVID-19, that one was referred to COVID-19 special parole dispensation, and other remissions, they are usually referred to just as special remission, and the only person who then is actually prerogative of the President. So he grants those remissions at any given time. It usually, what we've observed is that it will take a number of years before the President would then declare or grant a special remission to offenders.
So it's not an annual thing?
No, it's not an annual thing. It depends on the President.
Okay. Is it my turn or?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
We didn't.
With what? With asking questions?
Yeah,
or
for
chair?
now.
Chair.
Second round.
second round of
Oh,
questions.
okay, all right, so I had an emergency to attend to, sorry, colleagues. Commissioner Ngumaliseko, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. And Commissioner, in terms of your workforce, I see you have 2 foreign employees. Could you explain, please, why we have that? And then, in your presentation, you mentioned that the female centers are few and that it is a disadvantage in a way. And you also said the profile of female offenders is becoming, they're getting involved in more serious crime. So the profile is changing. I'm sure we would want to know as a CGE what it's looking like. But my question is related to your presentation. And then you then spoke about offender labor, right, for your special projects, which you outlined. You spoke about building, and you also spoke about textile workshops. And my question is, in your offender labor, do you have women participating in those special projects? Building projects, you spoke about the textile projects, I think others as well. I'm more interested, it sounds like hard skills area, and would like to know if women are participating there. Because I think when earlier you spoke about women's skills in terms of beauty, which would be my hair, my nails, all those things, but we'd like to know do they get the opportunity to develop those hard skills, and then those are the 2 questions that I had, and I think Chairperson Sipanya Mokhale, I think we would actually want to know the emerging profile of women offenders going forward. They may not necessarily, maybe they have, but I think we do have an interest as the CGE. What is that emerging profile that Rathabakale spoke about? I think the issue around the corrections, the public-private, I take comfort in what you say about the reviewing of that, and I'm sure it is not a favorable way to do that. You know. This is a high security area, and the risk is huge if we have private hands being responsible for holding inmates and the security of the country. It's unacceptable. But I think you even know better than me. I will pause. Those are my 2 questions. And I think, Chairperson, the issue of the infrastructure and its relationship with overcrowding, I think you know it even more than us. But the maintenance budget being in the hands of Treasury, centralized like that, I think it's a big problem, not just to corrections, but to all of us who depend on that department for infrastructure development, etc. Maybe we will want to take it further or at another level. But that's just a comment. Those were my 2 questions. I will pause there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Commissioner Naidu.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, I'm going to just go back to 2 issues, maybe 3 issues. Your relationship with DPW, it seems to be in a, I wouldn't say a love-hate situation right now, but it is problematic in the sense that when we undertook the inspection in loco in KZN, your boiler was down, which I think it was down now for the 2nd day. And your acting area commissioner, Lena, at that stage was telling me all it took was a matter of a signature on a document to ensure that was up and running. But the situation was so volatile that I was contemplating not going ahead with the oversight visit due to safety concerns. I really need you to look at your relationship. I mean, a matter of a signature, once you have inmates starving, we're going to have riots. The security issue comes into play. So please, something for you to note on and take consideration of is your relationship with DPW. Offender labor, I'm going to come back to what Commissioner O'Hara has said. When we did the inspection in Worcester, you had a beautiful center set up, Courage of Hope, where they were making jewelry, they were making carving boards, etc. I was given to understand that those items are sold at markets. I need to hear from you, the funds from the proceeds of the sale of these items, is it being utilized by the department? And, I mean, this is one of the funding issues that could be, you know, ways that you could raise funds in. I then want to come to disability. And given the opportunity, given that one of the prisons were down, Koshimampuru was not on our original list. And specifically, we wanted to look at it from a disability perspective, taking into account the case of Lucky Matoau. And we had inspected the cell of inmate Pistorius. And that particular cell, I'm going to just cap it there.
No, go ahead. I was just saying this.
Okay.
That's captured in there.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right. That particular cell was not conducive to a double amputee. That cell alone. Yes, the bathroom next door for him was equipped, it was spacious, he could move around. But I'm making particular reference. His cell was no different than the cell opposite him. Okay? And what we need, and taken into account Lucky's situation, we now have somebody that should be incarcerated, that is serving the rest of his life in the comfort of his home, surrounded by his family and friends, whereas his victim's family does not have that luxury. And it's time that our centers be equipped for this, and maybe you could include this in your strategy plan for the next 5 years. And then I'm going to come back to the security issue. During the inspection in local, what I found at your clinics, especially I think in the Durban Correctional Center, the instruments used by a dentist was just lying free. I understand that an inmate could be in pain, etc. But that very inmate could be telling us a story just to get to that particular item that is used by the doctor. I think my colleagues have already touched in the presentation with regards to the scissors. And then last but not least, Commissioner, I will be doing a great injustice to the people of South Africa if I don't address the security malfunction at your center in the Free State that resulted in victims not knowing that their perpetrator was out on the loose for about 10 months or so. How do we address the shortfall? And it's a shortfall on the part of the department, because that offender was released into your center for your safekeeping, for the safekeeping of all people of South Africa, for the victims. And it took us how many months before we were notified of this? So from a victim perspective, we need to address that. And on one final point, I want to bring into question your parolee circumstances. When an offender is released in your care, it's released into the care of the Department of Correctional Services. We have a situation where an offender has appealed his sentence and conviction, comes before a judge, and that judge releases that offender on bail. what is the obligation, given that this offender is being in your care, for you to inform the victims of that offender that a particular perpetrator has applied has appealed his sentence and conviction, he's been released on bail? What is the responsibility of the Department of Correctional Services? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, thanks, Commissioner. I just wanted to ask about the feedback that you give. Do you give feedback, for example, to your portfolio committee and to MANCO and all the other structures where you sit on in terms of the kind of work that you do? I'll tell you why I'm asking. If you are saying, you know, there isn't the readiness, or rather the good management of the process when people retire and resign, etc. There are delays, and it's a general public service challenge, which means somebody out there does not understand that yours is an essential service. You cannot afford to have 60 people resign or retire in 1 month. We may end up with escapes and all sorts of other things that happen. So this for me is actually about suggesting how we move forward, to actually say that only you and you alone can elevate your area of correctional services to what it should be. You are up there close to the police who have got people in their cells. You are up there close to the police. You are looking for people who have escaped or dangerous suspects that they have got to go and find and look for and keep until they go to court and get acquitted or convicted. So yours is not a normal public service. And I think it's important that you guys start seeing yourself as that. You cannot allow not even one warden to retire without replacing them in a particular time span. So if you could handle your natural attrition, as you put it, differently, you are an essential service. And then just my last question that I wanted to ask again, it would also form part of the advice. Have you considered using the unemployed social workers that we have and auxiliary social workers as part of your probation? Because yesterday when we were preparing, I was telling them that, truth be told, our probation process is not working. And I'm glad you honestly did say that actually even the parole is initiated by the offenders to say, I'm due for parole, whereas it should not be there. The parole, the people who have been given parole and are outside, as you know, Barba sign, they say they're going because to the police station in the morning, that sign and going to. But they go and sign in the morning and go to the nearest place where they're not supposed to be, either a bar, a tavern, or whatever. They go there. Some even after they've signed, they go on to do crime and come back the following day and sign again. The book is just there in the police station. Half of them even know the police officers. It's a very cozy relationship. It does not necessarily have to be hostile, but I'm saying the management and supervision of that process is very poor. It has been reduced to a signature on a daily basis. Whether somebody can sign for 5 days and then disappear, we do not know. So if that can be looked at and maybe bring on board the unemployed social workers who are out there who are already trained and would understand this area. And UNISA has also got an excellent program for auxiliary social workers that a lot of the children's homes, old age homes, and all of those other DSD facilities take them. Those kinds of people, you don't have to teach them what parole is. They've already been taught. So look at that. instead of traditional leaders only, just bring on board some of the people who are already trained. And then in relation to the escapes and the famous international saga of Thabo Bester, I just want to know what do you have in place in terms of screening of your employees, all the DSC officials. There's no ways that was done by him and Nandita alone. It was a whole machinery, smoothly operated with precision from inside. The fact that he was taken to a room where there are no cameras is an indication of inside information. The fact that somebody was killed in the CBD of Bloemfontein and went straight, by the way, the father said he did not go to the mortuary. When they confirmed the issues of the mortuary got an unknown, a black male with burn wounds. So he came after he had been to your facility. So there's precision there. And when you look at that facility, it's out, it's remote, it's on R702 there, that road. I use it when I visit the Eastern Cape State Spring. So it's remote. The only thing actually that you see there is the correctional service. Oh, okay. And so no one would have that gumption to say you're going to do this, you're going to do that. The weekend breaks that he would get and go to Durban for a break, those are what you call it from inside. So I would like to know, do you screen? If so, how do you screen your people? What do the results say? Who does the screening, etc.? And if not, have you, for the outsourced, because I don't want you to give us an excuse and say, no, this was an outsourced service provider. What measures do you put in place for them to meet your standards if you are screening? Thank you. That will be all from me, CEO. You can answer these ones and then we reply.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chairperson and Commissioners. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to indicate that the Thabo Bester incident happened under G4S. I've indicated that we have a controller mechanism, and then also the officials that are appointed by G4S are given a specific, G4S is given a specific requirement schedule. They do the screening, but we give them a specific requirement schedule. As it stands now, we have profiled all the G4S officials because we are anticipating terminating the contract and taking over. So from our side, our security Chief Directorate, working with the State Security Agency, is able to do that profiling and the screening. I admit, Chairperson, that when it comes to the private-public partnership contractors, we, in terms of the contract, have left that in their hands, and that, I think, for me, is a weakness again of the contract that we got ourselves into. We have extensively investigated that incident. We have a report that we presented to Parliament. Even after we presented to Parliament, we still continued with the investigation. The difficulty was that, okay, let me put it this way, in terms of our standard operating procedures, if there is an incident, security incident in a correctional setting or even outside that involves an offender, there are three things that we are required to do within the hour. First one is to inform the victim, and obviously we go back to the information in the files, the forms that we received from SAPS and from court. 2, we inform GICS because they are an inspectorate. 3, we also go out in public, especially if there are escapes. Now, with that incident, we informed the public and the victims when we made a determination that it is an escape. Throughout the 10 months and that period, there was an investigation. We also report to the police. Sorry, the fourth is that we report to the police. Escapes, whether it's unnatural death, those incidents, even in instances where the offenders fight amongst themselves or it's vice versa, we make it a point that the case is opened with the police. Now, the case that was opened with the police was a case of a person burning in a cell. And then information started coming up and we were testing the information ourselves. Now, when we say to the police, but for us this points to an escape. The police says, no, we're still investigating this incident of a death, a natural death in a cell. When we went out to announce that it's an escape, we went out as correctional services. Because now our investigation had come to a close and I was sitting with a report from the perspective of correctional services, taking everything into consideration, including our interaction with SAPS. Our report was saying this points to an escape. I interacted with the investigation team overnight, and the following morning we issued out that statement to say this is an escape, and already we have informed we have done all that. So what I'm trying to explain is that in as much as we have our mandate, we also have other law enforcement agencies that have mandates, and in our partnerships and how we work, we do not encroach into their mandates. But in announcing at that time that it's an escape, it was a risk that as the department we had to take. But that risk was on the strength of an investigation report that was presented to me as the national commissioner. So I had to inform the minister and the deputy minister that we are going to make that announcement, even though everything else in the environment was pointed to us that we should not make it that point. But we were convinced by our report that we need to make that announcement as correctional services. Auxiliary social workers, we are utilizing them. Chair, I take to heart the suggestion of also identifying those that are unemployed to help us in the parole monitoring space. Our population, as I indicated, is around 51,000. We have less than 5,000 parole officers that are there to monitor. We have provided them with all the resources. I myself even go out and do the parole monitoring. The weaknesses in the system that the chairperson is mentioning, they are obtaining, and we are trying by all means to ensure that we improve on those. Where we find our officials wanting, we correct them. We take them to disciplinary processes. There are parolees that we find are not meeting the requirements of the conditions of parole. And we rearrest them and take them back. There are a number of those that I had to do myself when we were doing monitoring. Sadly, there are those that we also find in conditions that are very bad. Some of them are very sickly to a point of being terminal. The families are living in poverty and squalor and all that. If it's still time, we are able to take them back so that at least we can address their conditions and then we release them back. In some instances, I have been to families where I would go in at night, because I normally do these operations at night. The following day, before we could finalize the process of taking the parolee back, the parolee would have left us because of the state of health. But that basically reflects on the state of poverty and that our communities are facing out there. I've indicated that we also do work on the side of the victims. Actually, we have a program of identifying victims that are not having a roof over their head. On a monthly basis, we use offender labor and we get donations of materials from business, and we build houses for them. We also establish vegetable gardens. We utilize the resources that we have in our farms to start the small farming operations in communities, but focusing on victims, because in most instances, some of them are actually are families that would not have parents. They're child-led families, headed families. So we are building onto that and expanding that. We give feedback to the portfolio committee and to the reporting structures that we report to about the work that we do. I indicated, Chairperson, that my reading is that from a departmental perspective, we were not managing the recruitment and attrition processes tightly, and that's why now we're doing it. It's just to correct the wrongs that were happening in the recent past. The issue of instruments laying around, we'll have to look into that. The offenders that, and I'm going to talk about workshops, the offenders that we take to workshops, we would have profiled them and looked at the risk around them. We accept, yes, that it is very risky. There's one workshop that I visited in Pietermaritzburg and found 26 offenders with one female official in the workshop. And of course, it's because of the fact that we do not have enough officials. And when I asked, they said, no, but most of the offenders have gone to court. So to escort an offender to court, you need more numbers because they can escape. So I then asked, but how do we then expose this official to this type of an environment? And the answer that I received was that these are offenders that have gone through rehabilitation programs, they're skilled, the risk, is minimal. But for me, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Because the risk is risk, and I indicated that should be corrected immediately, and it was corrected immediately. But those are the dynamics that we deal with on a daily basis. Even with the clinics themselves, in as much as we say we have health professionals, but we don't have enough. And in some of the remote centers, we find that it's only one health professional who's supposed to be looking after more than 500 inmates who will be queuing. So you now have to have that health professional, and then you beef up with security officials. So we actually have to do with what we have. The profile, acting DC, can you please deal with that as someone who specializes in corrections? Yes, female offenders are involved even in the construction site, because we also have female artisans that we've employed as the department, and most of them we employ them on contract, 5-year contracts, because of the issues of the budget. The infrastructure in Treasury, there is a provision that Treasury makes when we are supposed to respond back to Treasury after we receive allocation letters. And I've indicated in the department when I discussed with the finance section that maybe we need to use that provision where Treasury is saying, in as much as we allocate the 600 million for user charges, as a department you can apply if you want to repurpose the 600 million. So those are the things that are there that in the system are overlooked. So from now we're going to try and reapply given the reports that we have received. GIX does the same monitoring and it comes out with reports on our infrastructure. The portfolio committee does the same. So we have a body of information that really can present a compelling case to Treasury in terms of, and Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in terms of looking at maintenance of correctional facilities differently. The relationship with Department of Public Works, it is, I would say it is good at an executive level. The problem is at the level of project managers and those that are supposed to do the actual work. And as the Commissioner has been pointed out, to fix a boiler doesn't take that much. The processes are already there. In most instances, service providers are on term contracts. So it's just to get someone to come out there, assess, and then you allocate, open a job card, and you get the job done. So that's where the problem is. We, on a yearly basis, plan with Public Works. We sit as executives together and plan. Even the ministers have been having annual meetings just to receive reports from us on how we are doing. But the problem lies with the specific level of implementation, and that is what needs to be worked on.
Just on the Commissioner, if you could also make sure that you have meetings with the local government. I think you pointed out the impact of poor service delivery. You cannot expand, you cannot in any way improve on the current facilities because the other side is not meeting you halfway in terms of providing water, bulk, sewer, and all of that. That is profound. It's got to be known by the relevant. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the last issue, or the arts and culture, as I've indicated, it's part of the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework. We only started selling these products to the market in 2022. After also we presented to Treasury and we were allowed a particular tariff model. Yes, we are investing back the proceeds into expanding more on this. Actually, from this year, we're going to have our own exhibition, arts and craft exhibitions. Last year, for the first time, we participated at the Minagana Arts Festival, Grahamstown. When offenders do work as part of self-sufficiency and sustainability, there is a stipend that they get that is deposited into their accounts in the facility. They are not allowed to have cash, but there are cards that are utilized for them to buy at the tuck shop. It's also part of teaching them financial responsibility. Acting DC, through you, Chairperson, if the Acting DC can deal with the issue of the profiles.
Thank you, National Commissioner. Thank you, Chairperson and the Commissioners. Yes, the white paper on corrections referred to female offenders as a special category. So therefore, that means that they also have unique and needs that needs to be addressed. So looking at their profile, there was a study that we undertook around 2008, where we sampled a number of correctional facilities, especially those that are occupied by females, trying to find out the types of crimes that they've committed. And based on our findings, it was very clear that they committed economic type of crimes like youth theft and shoplifting, the majority. But in 2019, when we were analyzing their offense profile, we have realized that the dynamics are different. Most of our female offenders are committing aggressive and violent crimes. And what the worrying factor was the fact that even the ages are actually younger. We're talking about ages between 25 and 32, most of them, that age cohort, where you find that it's either maybe they have murdered a girlfriend to their partner, where they find that maybe their partner was cheating, but of course that goes with the psychological abuse and the trauma that went into those type of circumstances and relationship. That then necessitated us to then come up with a specific programs that address that. For example, under correctional programs, as one of the criminogenic rehabilitative programs that we have come up, we have a program that is targeting the actual needs of the family, of the females. For example, addressing issues of abuse, because we have also realized that most of them, they have history of sexual and physical abuse. And most of our female offenders, they also struggle with mental health challenges or illnesses. And their anxieties, they are always at the highest level. And that mainly, the contributing factor is the fact that most of them, they are primary caregivers to their children. So the incarceration sort of heightens their levels of anxieties. So therefore, in addressing those, we really continue to coming up with or developing programs that address their needs. So basically, that is the profile that we are seeing, and we are looking at maybe taking up a research study that is going to explore the phenomenon further, because that will also assist us in the holistic approach of the intervention that we'll have to employ to address such. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. Two foreigners.
For
the workforce.
Yeah, and my question on bail appeal on bail, what? Yeah, so you didn't answer. Yeah, how do you go about informing them?
The bail issue. I understand that is left to substance.
And the courts.
And the courts. Yeah. No, apologies for not reflecting on those two questions. On the bail issue, it's normally it is left to SAPS and the courts. We inform the victims on the offenders that are sentenced. I have noted it down as something. It wouldn't really cost the system much just to check and do that, because the numbers in any case that are released on bail are not that high. And it will also help us, because sometimes an offender is released on bail, we record that, and the offender creates a crime or gets arrested for a further charge whilst on bail. But because that offender would have committed that crime in another jurisdiction, the same offender finds himself or herself in another correctional facility. So it's something that will also help in enhancing our inmate information management systems. So we've noted it down as an issue that we have to attend to. On the issue of foreign nationals, I will have to get back to the Commission on that. I joined the department in 2020. They already at senior management level. They are naturalized. So that's the situation that one has found. But they are naturalized, and they've been in the department for an average more than 10 years. Unless, you want to say something?
Can I have a follow-up question on the female, on the, what do you call them, the offender labor? You say that the women do take part in construction and all of that, and the hard, what I call the hard technical areas. The training that they get, is it internal, or they get artisanal training, that relevant kind of training?
The training that they are given is internal training. It's training that is given by our artisans.
Okay.
It's basic, and those that then choose to pursue a particular career in line with that, obviously they go into the education stream, so they do both. Although we have a challenge that offenders would want to do more the practical because of that stipend, and don't want to go into the classroom because you have to share your hours now in a week or in a month. That's the balance that we are trying to get. But we ensure that even the internal training is certified because it's certificated because we do it with the assistance of CETAs.
Okay. Thank you.
CEO, Jan Krebs had a suggestion, if you could direct us on that. Sorry, we didn't focus with you. Yes, John.
Thank you, Chairperson. We're just looking at time, it's very close to lunch, so we're just going to ask that the proceedings be adjourned for lunch, and our esteemed guests will follow our Chairperson and the Commissioners to have lunch upstairs, and then we will reconvene the session after lunch. So lunch will be back after an hour, which is 1:30. Actually, let's say, yeah,
22.
22, yes. 20 to 2. Please be back for the proceedings, and then we will reconsume with the proceedings again. Then we'll hand over to the acting CEO and the Secretariat to continue with another session of questions and responses. Thank you.
That's right.